What if I'm contributing to my own suffering? Like, what if it's not just everything outside of me? What if there's something I can influence here?
I've always been interested in what allows us to thrive, what allows us to grow. And, the truth is what brings so many people, and myself included, was suffering, was being unhappy. People don't realize that by quieting, by meditating, by being mindful, you learn what is action that is going to be helpful, so that it's connected with action. It's not only just sitting doing nothing, but being informed as to what is wise. I turned 80 this year, and I'm so happy that I made it to 80. So what allowed me to move with what was happening?
I just want to quickly thank you for beginning to watch this podcast episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. Would love it if you join our community. You'll also be up to date on the latest content, and this really helps me reach out to more guests. You can also visit our website, centerformindfulness.ca. There's free events about mindfulness and laughter. Hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Kasim Al-Mashat, Registered Psychologist and mindfulness teacher and founder of Center for Mindfulness Canada in Vancouver. I'm interested in bringing you conversations that can support you in understanding your mind to transform your life. I am so excited to share with you today's guest and the conversations we'll be having with Elana Rosenbaum. We'll be talking about her inspiring journey of resilience and thriving through cancer. We'll talk about mindfulness, mindfulness based stress reduction, and really living well with challenging times, which is something we can all benefit from. So first, a warm welcome to you, Elana. I just want to welcome you to today. Thank you.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for those who are not as familiar with your incredible pioneering work, I'm just going to read your bio. So Elana Rosenbaum, she's a pioneering instructor in mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, along with John Kabat-Zinn and Saki Santorelli. She has been integrating mindfulness into daily life as a psychotherapist, certified MBSR teacher, and leader in the mindfulness field since 1984. Her authority and wisdom, forged through surviving cancer and stem cell transplant, and her many years teaching and helping others be well, brings an authenticity and depth to her work. Elana is a sought after internationally as a mindfulness coach, consultant, and speaker, and her books include Being Well, Even When You're Sick. This is such a good title. Being Well, Even When You're Sick, mindfulness practices for people living with cancer and other serious illness, as well as The Heart of Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, a MBSR guide for clinicians and clients, and Here for Now, Living Well with Cancer Through Mindfulness. So just before we began, I mentioned how we were talking, it's been maybe 13, 14, I can't remember how many years. We briefly met at a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher training. At the end, you came in and you actually shared a story that stuck with me. We may go back to about good, bad, who knows?
That's a great story.
After all these years, that stuck with me. So I wonder if we can begin with what even led you to start a journey in mindfulness personally, and really this incredible work that has served so many people for decades. What led you to this journey?
The first word that comes to my mind is luck. Really just being incredibly fortunate and curiosity. Because I became a social worker, a clinical social worker back in 1975. And so I've always been, and before that, I actually had been an educator. So I've always been interested in what allows us to thrive, what allows us to grow. And, the truth is what brings so many people, and myself included, was suffering, was being unhappy. So at the time, I was working as a psychotherapist in a large health maintenance organization that was in Worcester, Massachusetts. And down the road from me is the medical school, UMass, now UMass Memorial, but UMass Medical Center. And I was feeling depressed. And then I heard there was someone who taught yoga at lunchtime, and then someone else who taught meditation at another lunchtime. And so I would leave my office, my dark little single window office, and go down the road, and I would do some yoga at lunch, and I'd come back and I felt better. And then I would go another day and I would meditate, and again, I would come back and I'd be really refreshed. And at the same time, when people would come to see me for their mental health, they would come with their medical folder, and which was usually very thick. So the yoga teacher turned out to be John Kabat-Zinn. The meditation teacher was Larry Rosenberg. And they were both interested, especially John, in the mind-body connection. And Larry Rosenberg, the meditation teacher, needed a ride from Cambridge, Mass. To Worcester. And I lived in Cambridge. We both were going to Worcester once a week. And I was going every day. But so I would pick up Larry. Larry would sing to me, "You can't always get what you want," because I'd complain. And that was the beginning. And then this was really early days. There was an opening. Actually, Trudy Goodman had been teaching for one cycle, which is like a 4-month kind of period. And she was leaving. And so Larry said to John, who was a good friend of his, "Why don't you hire Elana?" And that was 1984.
Oh, wow.
But I started back before that, I think it was 82, 83. And initially I did not have a meditation practice, but I really was inspired when I listened to Larry, and I just stopped and became quieter. And then at a certain point, I quit my job. I thought, look, I complained about not being married, and what I didn't realize was I had the freedom to do what I wanted. And I was living in a rent-controlled apartment. And so I took the plunge, and it allowed for an opening for me to actually teach at the center, which at the time was called the Stress Reduction Clinic. It was not called Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, because mindfulness was too far out.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes.
So that was, and I got hooked. And what hooked me was, personally, it really did make a difference in my life. I really did, I think, gain perspective about what I considered important. And also, I really do like helping people. And it was dramatic to see changes in people. So for years, actually still now, I combined the psychotherapy with the MBSR, with the mindfulness training, because it was a part of my life, and they just seemed to fit so well together. There's time for individual treatment, and I think there's time for group work. But mindfulness is good with both.
It's so complementary. I see that myself as well as a psychologist, and I see doing one-on-one work with clients, and then MBSR program as a group, and like this, the openings, as you use that word, there's some kind of opening, perspective change. I'm wondering, for those who are not as familiar with what might be possible with mindfulness-based stress reduction, what actually is MBSR?
That's what is MBSR? Mindfulness. Well, you need to know what mindfulness is. And there's different definitions of it. The classical definition is a way of paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. And I understand that as a way of really being here and being at home and resting in awareness as many moments as possible. And in the early days, I don't think we talked as much about compassion and kindness, but you can't have that awareness without also generosity and kindness. And so I see mindfulness-based stress reduction as a way of meeting the conditions of our lives with compassion and intelligence. And insight develops not because you're forcing something, but by quieting down, what's really important seems to come to the fore. And that in that quieter space, quieter, it's not always silent. What happens is, I think we begin noticing what is the effect of a thought? What is the effect of an action? And how does it contribute to our well-being, or does it distract from it? So in the beginning, I think people work very hard to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And the irony is there's no place to go. It's here. And I don't know if that makes sense especially in the beginning, because you say, what's here? Oh, I didn't notice that my pain was profound, like in this one spot. Why should I be quiet and feel my pain more?
Yeah.
And so it's a way of learning that you can be with pain, both emotional and physical, by not fighting what can't be changed, but how to meet it. Almost like think of it as surfing. You're surfing the feelings, you're surfing what's happening. And then there's a realization experientially, not because you're being lectured, an experiential understanding that everything changes.
Yeah.
And grasping, holding on, doesn't help.
Yeah. As you're naming, beginning to recognize a thought and the impact it has, what's happening with an emotion or a sensation, it's getting to see some of that autopilot, how we live most of the day. It's just autopilot. And often that autopilot is resisting, like not turning to, not looking, we're too busy. So even when you're mentioning like shoulder pain, the autopilot would be like, I don't want to look there. Right, the turning away, right? Like, or it might be an emotion. It could be sadness or anxiety or grief. Like, I don't want to go there.
But it's what we don't like.
Yes. And some people go, well, what's the point of going there? How does that help? And what have you seen in terms of this gentle turning to and investigating things in our life, our emotion, our thoughts, turning to things?
Well, I've always felt practice has to be practical. In the beginning, it's tricky because you wonder what is helpful about this. So there's a certain amount of faith and trust involved in this. And I think that's where having a good teacher comes in also. Because I think we transmit you mentioned hope before as we were talking earlier. No one wants to be miserable. And so in a way, it's a leap of faith that by turning towards, that can make a difference. And over time, if with hanging in there and support, you begin to experience a difference. So rather than being clutched and tight all the time, there begins to be more space and longer periods of contentment, longer periods of a sense of mastery, of control, not right away.
Yeah.
So some of it is being aware of expectations and desire and just out breath, letting be, letting go. And it's pure practice. So I'd say the desire to be happier, the desire to feel better, and faith in, it's now considered evidence-based. So faith in the studies, faith in the teacher, faith in the process, and faith in yourself. And one of the things I've always loved is that John has always said there's more right with you than wrong. And that's not easy to understand or to accept. I mean, I'm okay. When I'm feeling not okay, So
Mm,
and I think being in a group, mindfulness based stress reduction is a model that uses
mm,
group and group process. And what
yeah.
happens is when we're feeling miserable, we tend to feel very alone.
Mm,
And there's a realization that I'm not alone, that this is the human condition. Others also are challenged by life.
mm.
Um, but let's engage in it, and let's engage in it together and support each other.
This is one of the things that I find so precious is the wisdom that arises from everyone that as they investigate and explore, oh, here's my patterns or here's what I'm noticing. And like, oh, I'm realizing I am whatever, fill in the blank. I've been living this way and I didn't think there was another way to live. I
Right,
mean,
right.
for me, when I began this path, I was very skeptical. Like, I'm really
Mm-hmm,
busy. I was just getting into graduate school. So, and I was like, I don't have time to stop. Like, I could do like 5 more emails. I can study like a couple more articles. Like, how is this going to help me? And, this ongoing challenges, grief. I started having health conditions like stomach problems, colon. And I felt like, I'm, what if I'm contributing to my own suffering? Like, what if it's not just everything outside of me?
mm-hmm,
What if there's something I can influence here? And that really kind of pulled me in to go, let's see, less as you named the evidence. That kept me going. I'm like, okay, the research, it helped my conceptual mind. Okay, according to the research, this works. So let's see if it's going to work for me. My special brain is going to work for my,
mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Right, right. And what allowed you to hang in there during this earlier period when there was doubt is very crippling. It's
Mm,
also important to question whether
yes.
this will work, and be willing to give it the time to see. But what allowed you to
Mm.
hang in there?
The main thing was moments of things I sort of experienced differently. Like,
Mm,
wow, I don't have, like, there's a moments of I can be at ease and peace with my pain. Oh, me hating my own, like, body, my own colon for what was going, wasn't making it happen. Like,
mm,
I really,
mm,
I was like upset with my body. What's wrong with you? Stop it. And I'm like,
mm,
wow, I'm talking in such a harsh way with myself.
mm, mm,
Like that began to change. Like, wait a minute. I know you're
mm,
hurting, body. Let's be together now. Let's work together.
mm.
Not the enemy. My body no longer became my enemy, and my mind as well. Got to realize it.
Wonderful.
So that really kept me. But I stopped a couple of times when I began. I'm like, I don't know, this is not working.
I think that's healthy, actually,
Yeah, yeah,
to question, but you came back.
yeah.
Now here you are.
Now I got hooked, as you shared. And
Yeah.
John Kabat-Zinn says that often, like this love affair. And I really felt that. And I did mind body medicine with him and Saki, and I felt that love affair, that 7 day that he did at a time. I was like, oh, this is what MBSR is.
I'm glad you mentioned love,
Yeah.
because the older I get and the more I'm involved in this, I've actually been doing 4-week programs lately,
Mm,
for UMass Memorial Mindfulness Center. There have been
mm,
changes, so um, the program has spread into so many different places, and
mm.
people are looking for different ways to meet their needs that
Yeah.
make sense. Um, but I think that what kept me and others is, oh, there's a lot of love.
Mm,
There's something about being with others who are willing to say, I'm vulnerable, I'm hurting, and oh, you're hurting too. And that caring is
mm,
just, it's pure love. It makes all the difference in the world.
mm.
And I actually worry that sometimes mindfulness has become so popular that people see it more as a technique rather than a
Yeah.
love of.
Yeah. Can you say some more about that? Because I see that too. Like, oh, I learned the technique. And it's really so not that. So I wonder if you can share a little bit how it's not just a technique.
I think you have to keep doing it. I think the
Mm,
only answer is to get hooked. to have discover those moments and recognize them as they happen. And then there's a desire to have more of those moments. And so if you keep doing it, you realize it's much more profound than a technique.
Yeah.
It's not, and in fact, using it as a technique can cause suffering
Yeah.
because it can activate the judging mind. And in order to be mindful, you're cultivating the ability to be non-judgmental, but to be as free of bias as possible. And you start, as you were describing, you start seeing how you talk to yourself. And you start seeing some of your blindness and some of that, like got a sense of underneath so much of the desire for achievement and to be seen is a sense of I'm not good enough. So I think it's being with good people, good teachers, and a willingness to be patient with yourself. You know, there's certain qualities that are cultivated, and one of them is patience, another is beginner's mind, another is try. I mean, these all so attitudinal. Your attitude makes a major difference. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, it sure does. Because, as you're saying that, it really helps people see clearly it's not just about how to meditate. It's not
Right.
about just, sit or lie down or stand or close your eyes or not, however it is, and just meditate. And now, ding, it's finished, go back to being stressed. Like,
Right.
right. Like that defeats, and I think MBSR, mindfulness based stress reduction, really helped me bridge that gap. Like how am I, even when I go for a walk, am I even there for it, or I'm worrying and stressing and remembering, and I'm not even noticing this cloud formation that's happening, the bird that's flying, the scent of the fresh air, or the diesel car that's going by, big truck. Like all these precious moments that will never happen again. Can I
Right.
be there
Right.
for them rather
Right.
than just
Right.
leaping to like what's going to happen tomorrow?
So you're mentioning a
Mm,
deep sense of appreciation, and with
mm,
that often comes gratitude.
mm.
And that makes a major difference in our lives.
Yeah, which is a perspective change. You mentioned perspective in MBSR.
Mhm.
Like, oh, we can see things a little different.
Feel them differently.
Yeah.
Feel them. It's not
Mm.
just mental. The whole
No.
body does respond. You can feel the breath slowing and calming. You can realize that you had talked about pain. The pain continues, but by not fighting it and sort of moving with it like a dance, it's it's bearable.
Mm.
And you learn at what point you do need to refocus. So it's people don't realize that by quieting, by meditating, by being mindful,
Mm.
you learn what is action that is going to be helpful so that it's connected with action. It's not only just sitting doing nothing, but
Mm.
being informed as to what is wise and helpful to
Mm.
you and to others.
Mm. See, that is one of the many ways that it's so practical, as you're naming it.
Mhm.
Like it's practical. If we can't apply it in daily life, well, what good is it? And
Right, right,
um,
all right.
yeah,
But they need to be encouraged to not give up.
right. To keep going, just give it a couple more. See what
Don't
happens.
give up.
Don't get, see what happens. See what happens. And you've had an incredible journey. I know you have books about that as well, but what is that like working with like illness, with cancer or other, turning points in life and living well with things that show up we don't want, whatever it is.
Mhm. A lot of it is attitude.
Mm,
I turned 80 this year,
mm,
and I'm so happy that I made it to 80. So what allowed me to move with, you listen to the words I'm using, what allowed me to move with what was happening. And I think it begins with tolerating that you will get upset, that it is hard. But then what do I focus on? Do I only focus on my anger or resistance or poor me? Or can I appreciate that we live in a world, in a society, we're very fortunate, where there is good medical care, where there are people who care, where you're so much more than any disease. So in the early classes of the mindfulness based stress reduction, we have a problem that we ask people to solve, which you're familiar with, and it's 9 dots. And the question is to connect the dots in 4 straight lines without connect all the dots in 4 straight lines without going over any line or removing your pencil from the paper. And often what happens is people make a box and all the dots can't be connected. But when you go outside the box, almost like a kite moving outside the box, they're all connected. And so I think it's the ability to go bigger and not to identify as the poor me who's sick. You are sick. You are a patient. Of course, it's unpleasant, but there's so much more to you. You're still a person. And so I actually still get somewhat reactive when someone treats me as someone who's what's, oh, you poor person, as opposed to just treat me as a person. And it's very important that we maintain our own personhood, because there's a lot of dependency when you become a patient. And it's important to be able to advocate for yourself. It's important to, I remember appreciating the softness of the bed, the warmth of a blanket, a smile. So much is there a willingness to go bigger? Is there a willingness to pay attention to more than the pain?
See, this can be really supportive instead of postponing life will be better when, because that's something that I see often is like when the diagnosis is done with, when whatever, selling the house, buying the house, getting the job, whatever, meeting someone, divorcing someone, I mean, whatever it is, when, then life will be better. And it may have some truth, like life could be better if that is over. Why are we waiting till then when it's available here? That's what I'm getting from what you're sharing. Would you say, yeah, well, it's available
I
here?
mean, just the fact that you're getting treatment, how lucky. How lucky. Just the fact, I mean, I really did get very sick when I had the transplant. It was my own bone marrow, but still, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, really did come close to dying. But at the same time, I just felt so at peace because I felt that life does go on and I'm part of that stream. I just was so appreciative of being taken care of, and that I had the opportunity to still see. I remember sitting in my hospital room. I had a window, and I remember just looking at the clouds in the sky moving through, and it was peaceful. So it's finding those moments that are peaceful. And I said this once, and one of the nurses on the transplant unit was, because I was saying, oh, so wonderful, felt peaceful. She says, well, you also were on a lot of drugs. I think it was more than the drugs. I think it was the attitude that was cultivated. I had been teaching for 12 years when I got really sick. And then I have had a couple of recurrences. One was at a loving kindness retreat. And so I'm breathing with the pain and breathing with the pain. And I remember I went to try to tie my shoes, and it was just so much pain. It was really hard.
Mm.
And this woman came who happened to see me, and she says, I think you should go to the doctor. And I'm saying this because denial can be amazing,
Um,
amazing. And so I was really happy that she saw me. I listened, and then I was able to be taken. I actually went to the emergency room and had surgery the next day.
oh wow! So
But
you left the retreat.
I had to, but I
Wow.
was so determined. I think you're that I left my sheets there. Thinking, okay, maybe I'll come back. I went back, but not then, to pick up the
Yeah.
sheets.
Yeah.
Um, we have to live with ourselves, and we have to forgive ourselves sometimes. So that took a little
Mm.
while, but boy, was I thankful.
Mm.
Thankful. Gratitude has really been very helpful. And
Yeah.
that's the question. How can you feel grateful when you're given a diagnosis of cancer or some other horrible disease?
Mm.
And maybe you can't right away, but you
Mm.
can. There's always something that is possible to connect to that can bring some, even if it's momentary, peace.
Yeah. See, that's so hopeful because this can be applied even if something is not getting better.
Right,
You know,
right,
whether it's some chronic, whatever's happening, people getting into
right.
accidents and impact on the
Bad
brain,
things can
right?
happen,
Like,
right?
and things okay, not getting better. And then there's naturally anger forms. Why has happened? Why
Right,
me? Like you
right,
said, you could have
right,
gone that way. Like, why me? And I don't like this whatever this
right.
hospital or this person that's delivering treatment. Like that would have led you to a different experience.
But some of that may happen still. So I
Mm.
think if it happens and you don't like something, listen to it
Yeah,
and
right.
and question. I mean, a lot of times people, it was actually very hard being a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher when I was initially diagnosed, because I had an expectation I could just be calm and at peace all the time. And no, you can't, but you can find those moments. You can cultivate. Um, and that's where patience and I think support is just really helpful.
Mm. Yeah.
Support.
Yeah. Community. This is the other thing that I so enjoy about mindfulness-based stress reduction is kind of forming a community of
Right,
humanity. And
right.
he were traveling, as John Kabat-Zinn says, the full catastrophe, all the good things, the joys, the loss, the grief, all of it. And isn't that life? But we want it a certain way. We want life just to be right, according to exactly what we want, when we want it, then life will be good. But how often does that happen? Yeah.
I think in moments, probably all the time, but
Mm.
we miss those moments.
Mm. Yeah.
Like I'm enjoying listening to you, being able to be so articulate about what mindfulness is and how it's been useful for you and your
Mm.
desire to serve others and the
Mm.
appreciation of community. I mean, it's hard to know in the beginning, but joy really does bubble up.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
great.
Yes. So it's not just about like let's work with the stress and the suffering. It's not just that. It's allowing
You
the
can
natural
laugh.
joy. Yeah, you can laugh.
Yeah.
You can have both.
People forget about that.
Yeah.
Things can be funny.
Yeah, totally. I want to share something that happened to me the last couple of months that I had to laugh about, which is about aging. I want to ask you about that, dealing with aging. And
Mhm.
so I had a prescription change on my glasses, and it was mostly just reading and driving. And all of a sudden, I was just looking at my plate. And I'm like, why is the broccoli looking so fuzzy? And I moved the plate. And I was like, I had a moment of, I need my glasses now, actually, all the time. And there was this like, it took me back. I just sat. I'm like, oh, I'm at that point now. I need my glasses all the time. So,
You describe it well. It's a
mm,
shock initially.
yeah.
It's really is, and then um, you learn about adaptability. But we don't talk too much about grief. There's loss too.
Yeah.
And I think we have to acknowledge the loss. And then the acceptance is so big. Capital A, see, it's really big and it's hard. But what is the question about aging?
I'm cu-
Um,
Mm.
what would you like to know about it? I'm here.
Yeah.
That's what I say that a lot.
This living, aging well and having a full life while aging and dealing with the changes that happens in aging
It takes
well.
strength. It does take strength and resilience. And so what I did was whenever I go through something, I tend to start a group. So I started, if anyone here who's listening, you're welcome to come. If you come to my website, it's free. I'm not making any money out of this one. ElanaRosenbaum.com. Once a month, I have a drop-in group on aging. And I
Mm,
sent out a blog, which gives me permission to sit and write and reflect on what's happened this week, what's happened this month, and what can we reflect upon. And we just meet for an hour. There's been around 30, 32 people coming,
mm,
and we meditate for about 20 minutes. And then we contemplate a particular question. People go into small groups. This is all online. And then
mm,
they come back to the large group and talk together. And I personally, I'm doing it for myself. I mean, people love it, but I'm really doing it for me because it's helpful to
mm,
talk to others who are going through what you're going through to maintain perspective and to be able to appreciate, hey, I'm still here. I'm
mm,
alive. I can't do that, but I can do this.
mm,
So these days I walk with I have my walking poles.
mm,
I don't like it, but I'm able to go up hills and I can go
mm,
move pretty quickly. And it hasn't stopped me, even
mm.
though I don't like it. So it's acknowledging, darn, I don't like this, but this is what I can do.
So it's really honoring the things that have changed, acknowledging it. You don't need to like it. It's like, this kind of sucks. And here's what I can do. Like the focus
Right,
is here's what I can do on top of.
right. And it's
Okay.
John again
Yeah,
saying, there's more right with you than wrong.
yeah,
You
yeah.
still have a mind, you still have some spirit. You can take naps.
Yes, yes. It's such a natural process, and there's so many industries out there that like fighting aging and like looking certain way, and it's just natural aging. Like, yeah, looking at the mirror every day may not look very different, but
But how
five
you live
years, 10
now,
years, yeah,
how you live now makes a difference later.
yeah, yeah.
But it's never too late. There's always, and I think the other thing about getting older, believe it or not, I think you get freer. So the question is, so I was recently with my niece and her family, her husband and her 5-year-old in Brazil, because her husband's Brazilian. And I'm at the beach and all these women are just running around in these bikinis and their bellies are hanging over and they're flabby. And I'm looking at them in their bikinis, and I'm thinking, And then I went and I got myself a bikini. Why not?
That's right.
So that's my take on aging.
Yeah, yes. Enjoying the moments in life. Yeah.
And feeling sad about the changes.
Mm,
That's there too.
yeah. Yeah.
But it's good to know you can put on your glasses
I
and
know.
that
And
you have glasses.
yeah. And broccoli looks better with glasses.
Yeah, yeah. You know what you're eating.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
This meeting what's here, the challenges, what came up for me also recently is about grief. And it was interesting, having met grief myself and losing my father and
mm,
grandparents, loss. There's no way around it. Loss
No.
is something we'll experience. But a recent one, I notice I'm having
Yeah.
anticipatory grief, and this one is about a pet I don't even have,
Yeah.
about a dog. I'm like, oh, I've had a parrot for 36,
Mm-mm.
37 years, and I lost him a couple of years ago. It was really hard, and
Mm.
I'm thinking grief using like mindfulness to help us meet loss.
Right.
How has it helped you in meeting loss, whether friends, family,
Because
or pet?
it's shown me the importance of compassion.
Mm,
Mindfulness is an English word. It's mind and heart,
mm,
and it's learning what is soothing, what allows us to move with the grief, and not berating ourselves for feeling that way. It's not a happy feeling.
mm,
There is a lot of sadness, but it also means that you're able to love. So, and I once
mm,
asked Joseph Goldstein about it, who's one of my teachers, and Joseph talked about, well, clinging and attachment. And that didn't sit quite right with me because I really wanted some understanding and love in that moment. And then I asked Sylvia Vorstein, who's had raised a family,
mm,
4 children. She's now actually older than me, still doing some of this work. And Sylvia was just wonderful. She said, well, sometimes it takes a while to leave the body.
mm,
And I thought that was just so understanding because I felt it in my body. It wasn't just mental, I really felt it. And that's why I really like the work on compassion. And I just instinctively went and put my hands on my heart.
mm,
And to know that it's okay, what is soothing, what allows me to be with this. And again, no, I'm more than that sadness, but it's
mm,
really a part of me. And how fortunate I am to have loved this person, this pet. So I
mm,
am able to feel sad and at the same time hope that it would pass a lot faster than it does. I don't know if that
mm.
helps.
Yes, so there's space for both. There's space for the sadness that's felt, and there's also appreciation for the moments that were shared with a person who
Right,
has passed or
right,
soon to pass. Like
right.
there's both of them. There's room
And
in the
it's
heart.
sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But allowing room in the heart for both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not to close the heart. And that's the key with pain too. It's so easy to, not easy, but the
Mm,
first tendency is to tighten and resist. And that's what mindfulness has taught me. That's when I need to maybe do a metta meditation. May I
mm,
be safe and protected. May I be free from danger, inner and outer. May I be happy. Whatever the words are, may I be
mm,
healthy. May I live with ease. And just repeat that again and again. And that's okay too. So
mm,
there's different kinds of meditations, but mindfulness helps us know what would be useful at any given time.
mm. So,
Music, art. I mean, there's many different ways of working with grief, and it's respecting it.
yeah, it's not something that just like a switch. Sometimes it's like, oh, we've happened. I should be over it in a couple of days, a week, or it's a journey. Like really, is a journey. A journey. It comes and goes, it ebbs and flows, and allowing space. Not that we're failing at it. It's just that's grief.
That's right.
It's not a.
And having lost your father, of
Mm,
course, there's some anticipatory grief, about
yeah,
reconnecting, having, getting a dog, for example.
yeah,
Everything does die,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we don't have to like it.
No, yeah. But there's something actually freeing about knowing that ahead of time. Like this is the truth, and it's really not permanent. Like
Right. Well, enjoy it now. It
enjoy it
allows you
while
to
we have
really,
it right here.
right. I think of that about my spouse.
Yeah.
It's put things in perspective. Is this really worth fighting over? Or, can I take a moment and sort of step back and think, and not immediately react
Yeah.
out loud?
Yes. Putting things in perspective again.
What's important? What's important?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's worth the fight. and other times it isn't.
Yeah. But the knowing, like the
Yeah.
space of knowing. And
The,
sometimes we will
there's
just,
choice.
yeah.
Choice.
Well, there's so much generosity in your heart for really taking the
Oh,
time and sharing your wisdom, your journey, your experience. And I'm wondering, just before we end, and this has gone fast, but before we end, I'm wondering, is there any um, encouragements or final words for anyone still thinking about mindfulness to give it a chance or continue, or any final words in your mind that you want people to know?
I think, I guess the two words that come to me are trust and love, and also be willing to take a chance and not know, but to see for yourself, to not, you can read all the research, but I think it's very important to experience and to find a teacher that is
Mm,
that you can respect. There are a
mm,
lot of apps now, and if you're using an app, to maybe find a person also who you can
mm,
talk to, who has experience. Or I think some of the apps now have people that can talk to you, but to give it a chance and give yourself a chance.
mm,
And John gave me the title of that first book, Here for Now. Here for Now. I think that was a wonderful title, is a wonderful title. And to remember, we're here for now. And
mm,
everything does change. So why not be here now?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all your shares. And I'll be putting in the show notes how people can reach you, your website. And I want to thank all the listeners for watching, for listening. If you found this useful, feel free to share, like, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you're curious too about mindfulness, we have free information sessions online about mindfulness based stress reduction at the Center for Mindfulness.ca. I'll put that in the show
And
notes
I
as
would
well.
recommend going to you.
Thank you.
A
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And thank you for your contribution to so many.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you. I really mean it. Thank you. Take care.
Truly, my pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
now.